We want to turn you now to Tallahassee, where Florida Governor Rick Scott is meeting with families of victims from the deadly school shooting in Parkland. He may also sign a new gun bill. Let's listen in.
Short amount of time. I want to point out that this is a far different way of operating than the typical inefficiency we see from the federal government in Washington. Politics in D.C. seems to always get in the way of actually enacting measures that will help American families. As a businessman, I have always rejected the idea that government has to be slow. Today should serve as an example to the entire country that government can and must move fast. I said at the beginning of this process less than 3 weeks ago that we have to be very careful as we balance our individual rights with our need for public safety. Immediately following the shooting, I called emergency meetings with experts in law enforcement, education, and mental health, and developed a comprehensive action plan quickly after this tragedy. Simultaneously, the Florida Senate and the Florida House began working on their ideas on how to make our schools safer. We all had lots of ideas, and we had some shared ideas, and obviously we have some different ideas. On Wednesday, before the bill even passed, reporters began asking me if I was going to sign it or veto it. But I wanted to spend the time reading it line by line. I spent the last 2 days reading over the bill, talking with some of these families, talking to my family, and praying about this decision. I called on the legislature to give me a bill that will allow us to make our schools far safer, allowing for a much greater law enforcement presence and for hardening our school buildings. This bill does that. I called on the legislature to give me a bill which provides more funding for mental health services. This bill does that. I called on the legislature to give me a bill which gives us the ability to seek restraining orders to keep guns away from people with mental health problems and for people who are a danger to themselves and others. This bill does that. I asked for a bill which would ban bump stocks and raise the age to purchase a gun from 18 to 21. And this bill does that. However, there are things in this bill that I oppose, and I've been pretty open about that. I still think law enforcement officers should be the ones to protect our schools. I've heard all the arguments for teachers to be armed, and while this bill was significantly changed on this topic, I am still not persuaded. I am glad, however, that the plan in this bill is not mandatory, which means it will be up to locally elected officials. I think local control is very important. If counties do not want to do this, they simply can say no. I'm going to give local school and law enforcement officials time to determine if they want to use this money. I have already talked to the Florida legislature about redirecting funds that aren't used for this program for more law enforcement officers at our schools. Let me be clear. If I veto the funding for this program now, this funding cannot be used for additional law enforcement officers this year. I also do not believe in increased waiting periods for law-abiding citizens. It wouldn't have had an impact on this killer. There's been vigorous debate on all of these issues. I believe every side has had their chance to share their views, and that is truly what makes our democracy great. At the beginning of this process, I said that we should all have to give a little and make compromises, and that includes me. I know that many wanted more gun control than what is included in this bill, and I know that many believe this bill has too much gun control. I respect the sincerity and the validity of both of these viewpoints. Ryan Petty, the father of Alana, was killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, said, quote, "As families, we have different opinions and different backgrounds, but we came together and are united behind this legislation." To see these amazing families come together on a solution is powerful. And like these families, the members of the legislature and I have different opinions and backgrounds, but we needed to come together to help find a solution. So after reviewing the entire bill, I had to ask myself, will this bill make a huge investment and dramatically improve school safety in hopes of never seeing another tragedy like this again? Will this bill provide more funding to treat the mentally ill? Will this bill give far more tools to keep guns away from people who should not have them? The answer to all three is yes. And that is why I'm signing the legislation today. I want to conclude on one final point. I know the debate on all these issues will continue, and that's healthy in our democracy. People are passionate in their beliefs, and they should be. But we should not insult or disparage each other. We should work together to make our schools safe for our kids. We have a lot of work ahead of us in order to enact these reforms and make our schools safer. This is the time for all of us to come together, roll up our sleeves, and get it done. Before I sign the bill, I would like to thank a few people who made today possible. Andy Pollack and Ryan Petty. Thank you for your efforts to get this bill done. You have been walking the halls of the Capitol for days, fighting to get this bill across the finish line. You have inspired all of us. Thank you for having the strength to fight as you continue to grieve. To the families of all the victims, including Tony Maltago, the father of Gina, and Gina Hoyer, the mother of Luke, who are also with us today. I know there is nothing we could ever do to ease your pain. But know that through the passage of this legislation, the state of Florida will forever honor the incredible impact your loved ones have had on our state. They will never be forgotten. As Andy Pollack has said, we want him and all of these parents to be the last fathers and mothers to lose their children in a school shooting. We want the families of all the fallen teachers to be the last ones to lose their loved ones in our schools. Their actions like those of Coach Aaron Feist show how much they care about these kids. They deserve to be safe. To the students of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, you made your voices heard. You didn't let up, and you fought until there was change. You helped change our state. You made a difference. You should be proud. I want to thank Senate President Joe Negron, President-designate Bill Galvano, House Speaker Richard Corcoran, Speaker-designate Jose Oliva for your hard work on this bill. I've had the opportunity to work with President Negron and Speaker Corcoran for many years. While this was the last piece of legislation we worked on together, it's certainly the most meaningful. This is also the very first bill I will be signing this year. I also want to recognize Senator Book, Senator Rader, Representative Moskowitz, Representative Jacobs, who represent the Parkland community. Thank you for your input and ideas throughout this entire process. Every student in Florida has a right to learn in a safe environment. And every parent has a right to send their kids to school knowing that they will return safely at the end of the day. Today, I am signing bipartisan legislation that will help us achieve that. I want to thank everybody standing up here because everybody up here had an impact on getting this historic legislation passed. Now let's sign the bill.